So it's been a few months since I last spoke to you, and as it's 6 months since my stoma surgery, I thought I'd provide a little update on how I'm doing, how I've achieved sort of 100% recovery, and what you might be able to take from my experience to make your recovery from stoma surgery a lot easier. What I'll do is I'll talk about what I did after I left hospital, so not immediately after surgery, but a few weeks post-surgery, and hopefully there's some things in there that you can learn that can make your recovery much more successful. Just before my surgery, I spoke to my surgeon and he told me that the sort of average timeline is after 3 months, you'll be 75% recovered, and after 6 months, you'll be 100% recovered. Obviously, those are quite sort of arbitrary figures, and you need to sort of, I guess, in your own mind, figure out what 75% recovered and 100% recovered are. But for me, I say I felt about 100% recovered after sort of 2.5 months. So a lot quicker than the sort of timeline I was given by the surgeon. And I suppose for me, what 100% recovered looked like was living the life that I was living pre-surgery, but also doing stuff that I couldn't do pre-surgery. So running, working up to sort of running marathons, seeing all my friends, being able to sort of socialize and do what I couldn't do with them beforehand, going on holiday, and yeah, I guess living sort of without the sort of day-to-day pain of one, Crohn's disease, but two, any sort of injury from the surgery that I'd had. As always, I'll kind of split this into physical recovery and mental recovery. I do strongly believe that like the mental recovery is very important, just in terms of sort of giving yourself the best chance to sort of accept your new life, but also in giving you the sort of right attitude to go out and make sure your physical recovery goes as well as it can. Before I go into what I did, there are a few caveats. I guess these are things that are sort of out of my control, but did make my recovery go a lot smoother than they would otherwise have been. For instance, I'm young, I'm 27, I'm sort of at a very good age to have surgery and a very good age to recover from surgery. Although I was really underweight and pretty unwell going into surgery, I wasn't incredibly unwell. I still basically had pretty good function, and I was still actually like relatively fit. I had managed to quit my job leading up to surgery to focus on my health, so I didn't really have too much external pressure. I also had managed to move back in with my parents so they could look after me post-surgery, so I really didn't have a huge amount of pressure on me other than just focusing on getting better. I'm fully aware that an awful lot of people who will have the surgery will be parents and they'll have jobs and they'll generally be a lot older, quite often sort of like elderly, and they'll have a lot more pressure and stress on them and probably won't be able to spend quite as much of their time focusing on purely recovering. So point number one is get moving as quickly as possible. And that doesn't have to be anything major at all. That for me was literally at points just walking lengths of my garden. It was just walking up the road. Quite often I'd go out and set out for a 20-minute walk, and after 10 minutes I'd be in a lot of pain, my stomach would be aching, and I'd sort of feel a lot of pressure up in my shoulders. So yeah, take it really, really slow. Your body is obviously starting from a very, very low point. So just go out and walk 5 minutes if you can. And I would say, honestly, do that from the first day you get back from hospital. Just move as little as you can, but every day. And just slowly build up. And you'll be amazed at how quickly you can build up to very quickly sort of walking an hour. And then for me, within a month of surgery, I actually then started running. And to start running, I worked with a woman called Sarah Russell, who has a program called the Ostomy Studio. She is an ostomate, and she is also a sort of Pilates instructor / physio, and she basically specializes in getting people who've gone through stoma surgery back into athletics or sport. And it was really, really helpful for me to work with her because we did some sort of very basic Pilates movements that sort of gave me a lot more trust in my stomach. But she also just gave me loads of confidence and told me stories about people who had been patients of hers who had had stoma surgery and then I think 12 weeks later ran sort of 100-kilometer races, and people who'd gone out and done sort of big long runs within a few weeks of their surgery. So it was really helpful for me just to work with someone who gave me the confidence to run and also gave me the sort of cues and exercises that made my running a lot smoother. So Sarah Russell at the Ostomy Studio, I really recommend getting in touch with her. I'll link her page or whatever down in the description. And I'll also do a separate video on sort of like basic running preparation, physio moves just before your first runs, stuff to just make it more comfortable and easier for you. Link to that is number 2, and that is see a physiotherapist. When I was discharged from hospital, they didn't talk to me about physiotherapy or anything at all. They said that I was young and it wasn't really necessary for me to see a physiotherapist, and that you would just generally recover on your own. That didn't give me a huge amount of confidence, and it might be that I would have recovered on my own without a physiotherapist, but I feel like I managed to speed up the process by seeing a private physiotherapist who, similar to what Sarah Russell was doing with the Ostomy Studio, basically gave me a series of basic sort of Pilates routines to do, which I just sort of did daily. They were very short, but they definitely gave me a lot more trust in my core, because immediately after surgery, you've obviously got this huge wound, a number of huge wounds in your stomach, and you're quite sort of vulnerable and definitely don't trust yourself sort of walking upstairs, opening cupboards, falling over, whatever it might be. And I think seeing a physiotherapist, as well as just sort of like strengthening the area, just gave me loads of confidence and loads of trust. And within a couple of weeks of seeing the physiotherapist, like I said, I was out running, I was out cycling, and I was sort of, getting back to an active and healthy life. Another sort of random thing that I tried, which I think really sped up my recovery, was swimming. And I tried this maybe sort of 5-6 weeks post-surgery. And the first few times I went swimming, I really realised just how sort of tight and guarded I'd made my stomach. Because I think after surgery, you sort of naturally crouch over and sort of try and protect your stomach. And obviously, because it's new muscle tissue there, it's all grown back quite tight. So you do actually need to sort of manipulate it and stretch it a little bit. And swimming's really good for that, because obviously in the water you sort of take the weight off it and you do naturally just bend in your spine, and it sort of opens your stomach up gently, but also the sort of light strain on your stomach helps to sort of strengthen the muscles as well. I did sort of realise a few days after starting swimming that my general movement was way more confident and way easier, and although I went on a couple of long swims that went a bit pear-shaped, I did find that by just going swimming on a regular basis, it did make my movement a lot more simple and a lot more free, and it did sort of take my mind off any pain or restriction that I felt I had in my stomach. The next 2 I sort of touched on earlier, but they are to try and take time off work and also move in with a partner or back in with parents or whatever it might be, just to take external pressures off yourself. I really think you should try and take as much time off work as you can. So if your job allows you to take sort of 5 weeks or 2 months, which I think is normal for this sort of surgery, then definitely take it. You don't want any sort of external pressure or stress. You want to be able to just relax, focus entirely on getting your body back to working the way it should. You've obviously got this new sort of mechanism that your body's using, and that takes a bit of getting used to. So you'll have a couple of nights where you're up late and you'll just have you'll have stress. You don't need any extra stress. Also, after surgery, I think I read that the sort of effects of general anaesthetic take a week to wear off for the amount of hours you've been in surgery. So my surgery was 4.5 hours. Hypothetically, my recovery from that general anaesthetic should be sort of like 4 weeks. And I definitely noticed that I was like napping and pretty exhausted for a good few weeks after surgery. I don't know whether that's due to the general anesthetic and just being under surgery, or whether that is just because my body is trying to recover from the surgery. And like I said, if you can move back in with your spouse or a partner or friends or parents, then definitely do. You don't really want to be doing too much heavy lifting or anything at the beginning, so stuff like taking dishes out of the oven and doing the dishes and doing your laundry, if you can pass that off to someone else for the time being, then that's really good for you, because lifting all that sort of stuff does give you the chance of having a hernia. And similar to sort of taking time off your job, you just want to be looked after. You don't want any stress and pressure that you don't need to deal with. Next, and this is a bit of a general point, but it is just treat yourself with loads of care. eat the right food. I've done a video previously on what food you should be eating after surgery, but essentially it's low fiber and stuff that can sort of pass through you relatively easily, but also high protein. I'm not really sure how much it helped, but I was eating a very high protein diet after surgery, and I did recover pretty quickly. So yeah, I would stress low fiber, high protein, and avoid your obvious sort of nuts and seeds and stuff for the immediate period after surgery. Also, avoid booze. I'd say probably for the first month after surgery. To be honest, I don't think you're really going to want to drink. You'll be pretty exhausted. But don't worry, you can definitely get back into drinking. But I'd say for the first month, just let your body recover. Don't put anything in your body that it then needs to sort of process and deal with getting out. Like I said earlier, make sure you move, whatever that might be, just a wee walk or a stretch. Just get blood going to the stomach and start sort of manipulating those new muscle tissues that have formed there. And finally, sleep as much as you want, provided you manage to take time off work. Then sleep until midday, sleep throughout the day. Let your body recover and treat yourself with lots of care. And that links to my final point, which is more on the mental side, and that is try and be grateful for the body that you have. For me, I think it was a really important part of my recovery, and that was just recognizing that my body had been through so much and it is now likely in a far better position than it was before surgery. And if I can try and sort of treat my body and think about my body and think about my stoma in a positive light and be grateful for it, then it really helped me sort of adapt to my new life and move on positively. Try and remember that you likely had a diseased organ in you that was really affecting your quality of life and probably making you fairly miserable and not able to do the things you want and not able to be the person that you want to be. And be grateful for what you have now. I know it might be really hard. You might be dealing with a lot of pain. You might be dealing with some issues with the bag and with the stoma itself. But trust me, it will all get better. And it's certainly not going to get better if you view your body in a negative light or treat yourself poorly for what you've been through. When you are able to go and do the things that you couldn't do because you were ill or because you're recovering from surgery, be that see your friends, exercise, go drinking, dance, whatever it might be, then remember the times that you couldn't do it and be grateful that you've now got a body that's allowing you to do the things that you want to do and feel as good as you want to feel. And take full advantage of those opportunities when they come along. So if you can go on holiday, then go on holiday. If you can go and see your mates, go see your mates. If you can go to a festival, go to a festival. Just take full advantage of all the time you've lost and the experiences that you probably lost whilst you were ill. So that's it. That's basically what I've done to give myself a full recovery. Like I said, it was sort of 2.5 months until I felt basically entirely back to normal. As always, if you know anyone who's thinking about having the surgery or having the surgery or just had the surgery and they're worried about how they're going to recover, or they don't know what to do to make sure that they do recover well, or they're worried that they're not going to live a good life post-stoma surgery, then please send this on to them. If this video makes anyone's life a little bit easier, then it's worth me making. And I've got a few more in the pipeline that I plan on releasing in the next few weeks.